His leaps and bounds better than Hawk the Slayer.
But still really bad.
Parental discretion is advised.
No one can kill
The Hardcast.
no one!
Hey, that show really is a pile of garbage.
It's time for another dimensionally challenged episode of the Hardcast. I'm your host Chris, and today I'm joined by Patrick.
What about the what?
Tonight's review/discussion is about the 1983 sci-fi fantasy cheese fest known as Prisoners of the Lost Universe, directed by the one and only craptacular Terry Marcel, starring Richard Hatch, John Saxon, Kay Lenz, Peter O'Farrell, and Ray Charlson. Music by Harry Robertson. A bizarre series of accidents sends Dr. Hartman, TV reporter Carrie Madison, and handyman Dan Roebuck to another dimension, a violent world of swords, warlords, and undead subterranean monsters. Can Kendo champion Dan rescue Carrie from the megalomaniacal clutches of Cleel, the warlord? So Patrick, did Prisoners of the Lost Universe teleport you to a parallel world full of wonder and fantasy? Or did Terry Marcel and Harry Robertson sacrifice any potential for actual entertainment value to the explosive flames of the Naboo's rock god?
This movie was actually pretty good. I mean, yes, I'm biased because I grew up with it.
Yeah, we grew up with it.
Yeah, I was getting to that, you and I. But really, it's 10 times better than Hawk the Slayer.
I know, it gives me hope for Hawk the Hunter.
Wait, this one came after Hawk the Slayer?
Yeah, Hawk the Slayer's older.
Okay, well, that makes sense. So, we see the elf again, and he redeems himself as the Green Man in the movie.
It's played by Ray Charlson. Very, very beginning is kind of boring, but it introduces the main characters. Because you see the beginning of some crazy, crappy show about paranormal type stuff and different types of inventions and crap. And it's, with TV reporter Carrie Madison.
This is Carrie Madison inviting you to join me next week for some more curiosities of this weird and wacky world.
And then she goes to see the scientist guy. But on the way, she gets into a little bit of an accident with Dan, the handyman, who crashes his Nissan truck into the side of a mountain. Of course, they set it all up because there's all these earthquakes happening. I guess it's California. They get into a little bit of a fight. It's kind of funny.
What the hell are you trying to prove, lady? You want to drive in a demolition derby? Go do it on a track. Look, you got 2 feet. One for the accelerator and one for the goddamn brake.
The whole opposites attract type thing where they just don't get along. I like this part because it does set him up as a kendo guy, because he complains about how his kendo sword was broken in the accident.
This piece of equipment has seen me through 2 state championships, the defense of the interstate trophy, and cost me $40. Now look at it.
What is it?
What is it? It's a broken kendo sword. That's what it is.
I have to say the writing is quite good. Like, his responses, like, they're talking. They're actually having a conversation.
Yeah, it feels natural.
Yeah, it feels natural how she's a loudmouth American woman. He's just a dude trying to get to work.
We have to say, too, he's played by Richard Hatch, who is actually quite a decent actor. Everyone's seen him in the old Battlestar Galactica and in the new Battlestar Galactica. In this role, I think he really owns it. He plays like kind of the everyman, carpenter, handyman, blue-collar American. And it's easy to root for him. He's a very no bullshit type guy. He just tells you how it is, and you take him as you see him.
And, he loves his truck and
his tools too.
His tools, and the kendo stick kind of didn't fit into it.
No, it felt weird, but at the same time,
it was also the 80s though.
Yeah,
everybody was doing a little karate and a little of this and that, so it was kind of like, oh, I guess, he had a kendo stick.
It makes sense in response to later on in the movie when you see him kicking ass with a sword.
Yeah, that he actually knows how to sword play, which, who the hell practices with a sword unless in modern times you're doing kendo?
Although I have to say, his moves didn't look like kendo moves. His moves were like old school swashbuckling type sword play, not like the Japanese Asian style. But whatever, they set it up that he has experience with swords, and that works for me, because that's a lot more than a lot of movies do.
Yeah, where the guy just becomes a hero automatically. Anyway, she leaves him in that corner, that turn. His car is still having trouble. She gets to the house, Dr. Hartman's house.
Yes.
Which, by the way, he has awesome door.
Yeah, we did mention that. His door was awesome.
It looks like some old, wood carvings. Anyway, it's a nice door. He invites her in or something, and he's showing her the machine. He says, oh, this machine, it can transport matter to another universe, to another dimension.
The matter transmitter is a finely calibrated instrument.
And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, just give me your little makeup
Yeah, like a little metal compact.
With a mirror and all that. Anyway, so it's shiny. So he places it on
The teleporter pad, I guess.
with other shapes, and he teleports it to this other dimension. Of course, she's like, I don't know where to go. And he's like, I'm trying to explain to you, bitch. I just teleported it to another universe, another dimension. And he teleports it back. During the teleporting back, he can actually see in the reflection of the compact
Yes.
the world that they're in.
Yeah, you see like this really shiny, sparkly tree, which we're supposed to believe is a species of tree that does not exist on our world, but only in this parallel dimension.
Of course, he's like, oh, that's interesting. I guess when he's leaning forward, a little earthquake, and it kind of starts the machine up again, and he's leaning forward, and he pushes him in, and he basically gets teleported. Of course, our heroine, Carrie, is like, what the fuck is happening? What do I do? I would be fucking confused too, because not only that, she doesn't know how to work the machine, because when she went up to touch it, he was like, don't touch that. You don't know what you're doing. So, of course, she's like, what the hell do I do?
I don't think she could have done anything anyway.
Yeah, probably would have messed it up anyway.
It cuts back to Dan, and he's trying to fix his truck, but then his truck gets totaled because there's another earthquake. I think it's pretty much the same one that sent Dr. Hartman to the other dimension. Causes the electrical lines to break and fall into the Nissan truck because he's got his hood open, and it basically just fucks it up. And then he just hoofs it from there, walks to the nearest house, which happens to be Dr. Hartman's house. And he goes inside, and it's funny because he walks into that room, and she bashes his head in with her purse, and the sound effect is funny as hell. It's like straight out of Gymkhana.
Oh my God, not you again. Come here looking for help and I get mugged. What have I done to you, lady? You wipe out my truck, you cave in my skull.
So, of course, he's mad at her again.
Yeah,
He's like, you fucking bitch, again, you?
And it's like, it's not bad enough you destroy my livelihood, my car, and my tools, but you cave in my skull.
Those awesome lines. This movie has a lot of good lines in the movie. This is leaps and bounds better than Hawk the Slayer.
But still really bad, somehow.
But still bad. It's a better fantasy movie, in my opinion, than Hawk the Slayer.
Oh, yeah, much better.
I mean, it's imaginative.
Although I'm sure
and-
the Dungeons & Dragons fans will cry foul.
Anyway, so of course she's trying to explain to her friend here, Dan. She's like, the doctor's gone. He's like, what do you mean he left? Like, no, it teleported. And he's like, give me a break, lady. You think I'm stupid?
It's like, you've been watching your own show too much.
And she's like, no, this machine can teleport people.
This machine transmits things into another world, another dimension.
That's when, of course,
There's
Dan,
another. Yeah, Dan
Yeah,
gets teleported because there's
Dan,
another earthquake.
because he's like, what, this thing? And he's leaning forward and the earthquake happens and he gets teleported. She decides, while still teleporting, she jumps in too.
It's kind of
And-
interesting, too, because the movie actually jumps back and forth as far as either having Dan or Carrie be the main character. Even though, ostensibly, we're all supposed to be going like Dan's the main character because he's the big, strong American guy, the hero. But big portions of the movie where we were seeing everything from Carrie's point of view. When she gets teleported, we see it from her point of view. And as she's wandering around in this new world, doesn't know what to do.
in her khaki outfit or khaki skirt and matching outfit.
And
Like,
I guess her high heels. She's basically playing a really kind of stuck-up, dumb, arrogant, annoying bitch. But for whatever reason, I don't know, it might be because we've seen this movie quite a few times through our childhood. She's still likable overall. She has strong values and she embodies that character very well. And quite quickly, we end up liking her, I guess you could say. Well, I mean, at least accepting her. She's not as annoying as if they had gotten a different actress to play her, I think.
her character in the movie is not a whore. She's got a sense of right and wrong, and she's willing to stick up for them. She just doesn't give in, which you'll see within the movie itself.
She tries to be a decent person.
So she's, of course, climbing around, walking around, going like, what the hell? Where the hell am I? What am I
Remember,
doing
she
here?
runs into the Man-Beast.
She comes across a... not a tar pit, like a quicksand or something like that. It's not really quicksand, it's like movie quicksand, where basically it's water and they put like a layer of mud on top.
Yeah, maybe some sawdust or something.
He's stuck. He's basically looks like a Cro-Magnon man kind of thing, caveman kind of type. He's like giving her the look and his hand reaching out to her. First she's like, what the hell is this guy doing here? And then she's like, well, I really should help. She bends the tree branch over to him so he can grab it and pull himself out.
Yeah, it might have been a tree branch, or it could have been just a root sticking out, and he was able to pull himself out. And of course, that's when it gets really tense, because he's face to face with her.
She's faced to his chest is what she is.
Yeah, that exactly, because he's the Man-Beast. But
he's looking down on her, and he's like, in a way, he's like, I owe you. And,
yeah, but in her mind, she's going, he's going to rape the shit out of me
yeah,
right
like,
now.
oh, don't kill me, please. Don't kill me. And he just kind of goes his own way.
Remember, this is one of the funniest lines in the movie, where she's like, son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch.
What?
And she's not really referring to the guy. I think she's referring to the whole situation.
What did I get myself into? Where the hell am I? And
Yeah.
where the hell's Dan? And where's Dr. Hartman? And so she just keeps walking. She eventually gets to a point where she sees other people, and boy, are they weird looking.
Yeah. First of all, they sound like tigers or jaguars.